Hey guys, let's just wait a bit more for some more people to come in. Let's just wait a few. Let's take a minute more, two or more. Maybe I should play calming music, elevator music. Is that what streamers normally do? National Olympiad in Implementation. It's a fun contest. Oh, it was a fun contest. So yeah, you guys, should we start now? How many people are there? Let's see. Hmm. Lo-fi beats to code to. We should get some. NOI.ph should get some nice royalty-free music. Royalty-free music to code to, so they don't get struck down. Right, fine. Let's start our discussion at 4:05. We'll give it like 2 more minutes. Wait for more people to arrive. For the people that are here, hello. Why don't you comment about how you feel about the round today in the chat or in the Facebook comments? This very fun contest that we had this wonderful Saturday. It's one problem. One problem doesn't make it implementation. National Olympiad and implementation. Man, it's so awkward for me to just be here. We really should get those lo-fi beats to code too. Strings. What is this emoji? I think it has a name. I forget its precise name. Alright, it's 4:05, so we can start now. If anyone else wants to watch this, they can just watch the recording anyway. So, hi guys. My name is Cisco Ortega. If you're in the Discord channel, then my username is Shizuko. It's just Cisco, but weebified. I just graduated BS Math from Ateneo, and I've actually been volunteering as a problem setter in NOI.ph since I was in second year college. Yeah, so it's been a while now. I find it very fun, and I was very excited for this beginner contest So I hope you guys had as much fun solving this contest as I did writing it. Oh, it's pensive. Thank you. I'll take note. So, alright, let's start with discussions. I mean, let's just jump into it. Alright, so the first problem is yes, I'm currently solving ABaKoDa letters. Good. So it's simple, right? You're just given a single letter as input, and then you're asked to check if it's A or B or K or D, or pwede ring lowercase, so A or B or K or D. So let's just implement that straightforwardly, right? So we read the single character as input. Should I zoom in? I think I can zoom in. There you go. Let's read the one character's input. And then we want to check if it's an ABaKoDa letter, right? So we have to check if C equals what, A, or C equals B, or C equals K, or C equals D. But we can also do the lowercase versions. So we also have to add this, or C equals lowercase a, or C equals lowercase b, or C equals lowercase k, or C equals lowercase d. And then if any of these hold, then we print out, was it ABaKoDa? And then else print, I think it was boring. So that would be like one of the most straightforward ways of approaching this problem. We're just literally implementing it as it's asked for. Is everyone okay with that? Like, are there any questions about just this so far? Okay, none. So, good. So, of course, this was kind of a pain to type, and it only worked for this problem because it was specifically A, B, or K, or D. But we ideally want to have code that generalizes better, right? And or at least it's not as much of a pain to type. So, one thing we could do, well, this one isn't strictly necessary, but it's something I like doing to think about it, is that we have these two cases between upper and lower case. We can start leveraging some built-in functions in Python. So for example, we have this function called string.upper. I'll make a new code cell. Have you guys seen this? Yeah, so s equals, let's say, ABaKoDa, can't spell, and then I'll print out s.upper. So if I have a string and then I dot upper it converts everything to uppercase. So you could either do this for upper or lower, and then if you do that, now we only have to check half the cases. Because if the case of C is lowercase a, then dot upper would convert it to uppercase a. So we could just do this now. That's already a lot less typing. It's a lot more elegant, so to say. And I think this is actually okay. There's a lot of other stuff we can do, but then it's moving into language-specific tricks. Like, let's say, since we're in Python, we could do C in the list A, B, K, or D. Right, and this works because we're in Python. You could also do this in C++, but it's not as baked into the language syntax. You'd have to do, like, you'd make a set, and then you'd check if, like, the count of the set or something like that. But you can do it in C++ too. It's just rather natural in Python. And actually, also, we don't need to make this a list. We can make this a string, because a string is also, like in Python, a container of several items. So actually, this will also work. And I think this, as it is already like the simplest, neatest it's going to get for code for this first problem. Like, maybe we could start doing like a ternary operator if you really wanted to do one line. Like, okay, print ABaKoDa if C in ABKD, else boring. But you know, you don't have to do that. That's just spice. That's flavor. This is fine. When I was in high school, I was obsessed with making things like, oh, one line. The less lines, the better. But you know, this is fine. It's readable. Actually, the if-else is also readable, especially in Python, but it's not necessary. I think this is good now. I kind of want to say a little bit more about A, actually, than just this short discussion. So I'd like to go over two common errors that I saw when I was looking over the wrong submissions. I'm just pointing these out anonymously, so don't feel too called out if you see an error you made. This is just for educational purposes, right? ABaKoDa Code Golf Round when? Maybe in April. So one of the errors I saw was, let's go back to the OR chain. There you go, this one. So this is one way of approaching it. What if I did it like this? What do you guys think of this solution? It looks kind of correct, right? Or at least in a natural language sense. Right? That's how I would say it in English. If C is A or B or K or D. Error. Will this give an error if I type A? Actually, it seems to work. It doesn't have an error naman. If I type in B, still works. If I type in C, hey, why is C registering ABaKoDa when I do it this way? It's not throwing an error, this is valid, but it's kind of behaving differently than how we'd expect. I don't know, does anyone in the chat have an explanation for what's going on? Here, I'll prove it also. Let's do another one. Let's do Q. That's the one to sample. This is also ABaKoDa. Why is this code behaving this way? What a low resolution live stream does to man. Okay, I'll read it out loud for the people with low resolution. At the moment, it says if C double equals A or B or K or D. So this is technically passable because it doesn't give a syntax error. Python doesn't complain. This is completely valid Python. But it's behaving differently from how we might expect. I'll spoil it in like a minute na because I don't want to dwell too long on this. But yes, the other options are true. There's this thing that Python does, and actually not just Python, but a whole bunch of other programming languages. It's called truthy versus falsy values. So you're taught that for if conditions, you have to put a boolean in, right? If 1 is less than 2, right? That's a boolean, that's either true or false. But actually, if you try it out, you can actually start putting other stuff in those conditions. Like, let's say n equals 5. I could say if n... Oops, I pressed control enter. No, not control enter, shift enter. Print. So n is not true or false, it's a number. But I'm allowed to just pass it into this if statement, and it ends up working this way. So I won't dwell too much on it, but the keyword is truthy versus falsy values. There are values which you can pass to an if statement, and then they're just going to work. They'll be converted into a boolean. And the values that get converted to a boolean are called truthy. The values that get converted to true are truthy, and the false ones are called falsy. So falsy values are like, in Python, 0, an empty list, none, an empty string, I think. And anything that's like non-empty or non-zero, it'll be interpreted as true. So actually, if I just try this, if B, this is actually completely valid. And this B is true, so it runs the first statement. So that's the explanation for this common error. Wala lang, it's not too important to the main problem. I just want to point it out because I thought it was neat. And a good example of like debugging something that seems like it should work and it does work, question mark, but not really. So, keep that in mind. Maybe it'll happen next time and then you'll be saved an hour of pain and debugging. Alright, so... Oh, and the other one will just be quick. I've seen people... So, if C in ABaKoDa. And then people... So I saw some people doing this, and then they got wrong because O got accepted as an ABaKoDa letter. And, the only thing I can say about this is, please read the problem statement. Okay, so... Anything else we want to say about A, or can we move on? Alright, let me make this explicit. Oh. Right, we get to move on. I will move on in like... Oh wait, this is something that my math teacher did in our last year of college. I really liked it. She'd say, type 1 in the chat if you have no more questions, if this is good for you. So let's try that. I don't want people to have to find some words to speak. So if you're okay with this, type 1 in the chat, please. 2 1s. How's everyone else? Are you guys okay? 1, okay. Nice. Okay, let's move on to the next problem, which is borrowed words. Okay, so what's borrowed words? It's sort of like an extension of this, right? But instead of like a single letter, you want to check if any of them are hiram na titik. And I got to have fun with the English on that one. So let's read the input S. And then here's what we can do. This is a normal approach that many people have, and it's valid. So let's have this thing called a flag. Right? You guys play VNs, visual novels, event flags. Actually, not just visual novels, but like, like something you can trigger and then it'll be set. So we'll set this flag to false initially. And then we'll say that this flag will be triggered when a hiram na titik is found. And then we'll make a for loop to iterate over each of the characters in S. So for C in S. And then if C dot upper in CFJQVXC. Right, you see it's nice because this problem built on this problem built on the previous one. So we're kind of using it as a building block in our code. So for C and S, if C dot upper in this hiram na titik list, then we'll trip the flag. The flag is now true. And then we'll print what do I want to print? Pinoy and foreign, right? So if flag was tripped, print foreign, else print Pinoy. And then let's test it on, what are the sample inputs that I put in this case? Filipino is foreign. Filipino is Pinoy. Good. Was it Rizal? Oh, Rizal is foreign. But what about anime? Anime is Pinoy. Alright, everything looks good. So, alright, this is one straightforward approach. And it's completely valid, by the way. This is completely valid. This is a good approach. So, can you guys type 2 in the chat if you're good with where we are so far? Yeah, Philippine is foreign, anime is Pinoy. Isn't that how it's supposed to be? Oh yeah, and also like if you want to have intuitive variable names, whatever, you could rename this to like found instead of flag. Like flag is more of a general idea. So if you want your code to be more readable, okay, you found. There you go. I haven't found it yet. Yes, I have found it. Actually, I have no problems with this. This is completely valid code. But there's another thing we could do. This is another avenue we can explore, which is we can abuse this function that functions have. Wait. We can abuse a property that functions have. Right? Let's define a function. This is just Python syntax for defining a function. Has hiram, which accepts some word s. And then what I can do is for c in s, if c dot upper in then c f j q v x c, yeah, then I'll return true, and then at the end I'll return false. And then I can replace this with has hiram. Yes. Have you guys encountered this before? Because functions have this nice property where, well, a function could evaluate to some value, right? A function evaluates to some value, and when you give it the return value, it's like, okay, I'm done. I know what I evaluate to. I don't need to see anymore. What is that? Is it the Kaito Kid meme? I've seen enough. No, I forgot who said that. I've seen enough meme. Whatever. I'm not cool. So we're gonna iterate over each letter in S. If we find a hiram na titik, instead of tripping a flag, well, we wrote this function, so we can just return true immediately. And when we return true, right, the rest of the loop just won't even go off anymore. It'll just say, I know who I'm supposed to be already. All right, I'll exit as true. And then think of the only cases where we reach the end. If we reach the end and none of these got tripped at any point, so that means we iterated over every letter in S and none of them were hiram na titik, then that must mean none of them are hiram na titik if we made it to the end. And so we return false. Are you guys good with that? Do you have any questions? Can you type 1 if that explanation is satisfactory? One, nice. How about the others? Yeah. For the others who are too shy to say, I'll just give another demonstration here. Let's say for I in range, let's say 10. I'll print, wait, no. Define example. For I in range and print I. And then if I run this with example, let's say 10, then it goes all the way from 0 to 9. But then if I put this, let's say if I equals 6, return, and let's say dummy. Then what's happening? If I, wait, hold on, what's going on here? Maybe I need to refresh the cell. Indentation? Oh my gosh, right. There you go. Aha! I got caught by indentation there. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, as you can see here, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then this, it doesn't do the rest of the loop anymore. It just gets out of there. So that's kind of the same as what's happening here. If it finds a hiram na titik, it just leaves immediately without seeing the rest, without letting the rest of the function play out. So, okay, what are the benefits of doing it this way? Well, one approach is that we don't have to bother with the flag anymore. But, honestly, that's kind of minor. Well, when I'm coding, I don't like doing anything tedious, even if very pointlessly minor things like that. So, okay, that's a concrete benefit. Oh, return is essentially a break, yes. But it's actually way stronger than a break. Because, okay, when does the flag idea not generalize well? What if I wanted to do nested loops? Right, what if I wanted to do, let's say A is a list. And then I wanted to go for I in range. Let's say N. Then for J in range, I. And then if, let's say something like this. And then, let's say I want to exit the loop early, right? So I'd have to break here. Yeah, correct. Break would end this loop specifically, but I wouldn't break out of this outer loop. So then I'd have to do this irritating thing where I'd go if found break. And okay, now it's starting to get a little bit more ugly, where like the fine details are starting to get in the way of like the higher level concept. So yeah, you can think of it like break because it just stops what you're doing, but it's more powerful because return just exits the entire function call entirely, whereas break just exits the current loop, and then you have to do kind of dumb stuff like this, which is not neat. No, it's okay. It's good. It's good that we discuss things like this because it's these fine nuances which really show mastery in programming. So it's good that we learn all of these different things. So, okay, that's one thing. One is that this function thing kind of generalizes nicely because if, we don't want to do the messy break thing. Here's another benefit that I'm going to give to you. It's just that this reads more naturally to me, in my opinion. You get what I mean? Because we want to code stuff that's not just correct. We want to code stuff that's also neat and clean and easy to understand. Not just by other people, but even easy for you to understand. Maybe if you're debugging and something's wrong, you want to be able to understand your code if you're debugging. Or in non-comprog situations, if you leave this and then come back to it months later, you'd want to understand what's happening, right? And there's the flag approach is perfectly fine. But this is sort of going into, like if we were talking about writing, it's already grammatically correct, but we're starting to move into things like style and diction and composition and cohesion. And stylistically, I want to look at my code and at a glance just kind of understand what it's doing. And there's an approach to coding where we basically just use a lot of functions with descriptive function names so that the code actually looks less like a technical document and really more like just like an outline of an essay or a story. Instead of having that if found and then, what does found mean? And I have to scroll back up and check all this other stuff. No, this is very explanatory, right? It's self-explanatory. If has Hiram, then print out foreign, otherwise Pinoy. Okay, I understand this immediately. And then maybe I'd want to look back and like, wait. How did I actually implement has Hiram? It's fine, it's here. Actually, we can even go one step further. And let's say define is Hiram. And then we'll return, not S, I want C. Right? This is even less necessary because we don't even get any cleanup or elegance or whatever. Because it's just one line. This function is just one line and we just substituted it here. But I'm going to argue that this is neater because it makes my code easier to read. It makes it more self-evident, self-explanatory. Right? There's a saying that the good code is self-documenting or self-commenting. You don't have to... If you're putting comments everywhere to explain what everything does, then maybe your code's kind of bad. Not all the time, but it's a red flag. So the fact that having these variables and functions named intuitively, which allows me to read this like an English outline rather than code, I think that's valuable, and I think it's worth thinking about coding in this way, coding cleanly. Especially when you get to implementation problems, you want to be coding cleanly. Yes, exactly, readability. It's exactly it. Thank you. So, all right, that is problem B and everything I want to say about it. You guys have any questions, comments, anything you want to say? You guys can type one in the chat if we're okay with like this idea and why we're doing it this way. Yeah, type 1 if we're good, and we can move on to censorship. One. Okay, how about the others? One. Okay, so I guess we're good, mostly. Okay. Now, the set kind of has a big difficulty spike from B to K, as evidenced by the leaderboard. You can see that in the Discord, or go back and check the leaderboard of the contest. Because K is an implementation problem. Actually, K and D, I think, are somewhat close in difficulty for however we can quantify that. D is a math problem, right? Yung dual languages. That was a combi problem. It required some thinking and observations. K didn't require any observations or insights at all. It's just purely an implementation problem. And, code neatly. This entire spiel I gave about B, it's targeted towards problems like K. D is easier than CIMO. Yeah, I think a lot of people will feel that way. But the reasoning I had is that D involves combi, which is a thing we're gonna discuss by. A combi is a skill that has to be learned. Whereas K is technically, there's no prerequisite stuff. It's just implementation and coding neatly. And actually I say just coding neatly, but it's not just coding neatly, right? Because if it were just coding neatly, if it were so trivial, then people wouldn't struggle with this. So it turns out that coding neatly and just implementation, it's actually a meaningful thing to consider challenging, and it's good to pick up skills that help us with implementation problems like this. So I'm actually gonna switch to the let's switch to a whiteboard so we can just discuss without coding first. Oops. Why isn't that? There you go. Okay. So what's the problem for censorship again? Right, we have a definition of word. Okay, that works. So let's say, give me a sample sentence. I'm trying to think of something to write. I don't want to write any of the samples because they're actually quite long. Let's do hello world, sure. Oh, I forgot to set... I actually have 2 monitors right now, and I haven't configured my stylus to work with 2 monitors. I'll do that for next time. So hello, and then I'll put an underscore here so it's clear this is a space. So what's the problem again? The problem is we have like this line of text. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do this first. Let's just go back to the problem. I'll load it. The round 2. So let's look at censorship. And I'm actually going to go back to the problem statement itself because I feel like these definitions are quite important to look at. So what is a word? A word is a contiguous sequence. You could just Google that. It just means, dire-derecho, consecutive sequence of upper and or lowercase English letters. And then any other characters are either spaces or punctuation. So if I have this, for example, then I can separate it into words. So I have this pack, that's a word. And then my, that's another word. Box, that's another word. So the text is like partitioned into these different words. And then for each of those words, we want to do something, which is check if it has a hiram na titik, or well, actually here, a forbidden letter. And if it does have that forbidden letter, we want to censor it. And, we want to ignore punctuation, we want to ignore spaces. So actually, I'm just gonna code. Let's code. And you'll notice what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pseudocode it. So let's read like the line of input as text. And then let's just pseudocode, right? Let's say what word do we want to use? Get each word in the text, and then let's say for each word in the text, and then if has forbidden that word, then censor that word, right? And then like print the modified text, whatever. This is super loose, but it's not valid Python. It's super loose, but I hope you guys can see the benefit of just starting with pseudocode outline like this. We start with this high level detail. This is what we want to do in implementation, and then we'll just slowly flesh it out. We'll fill in the blanks, basically. We'll fill in each of these parts of the outline, and then we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as it go. But we can't do everything all at once. Let's just try taking this a little bit at a time. Let's start with this idea. Let's pick a thing that we want to do. And oops, wait, I forgot we have to read the forbidden. And has forbidden is actually a function of both word and input here. Oh, and forbidden. So you notice I used this function that doesn't exist. Just because, it's like an outline and it'll help me understand what I want to do. Well, it doesn't exist, but let's make it exist. So def has forbidden word forbidden. Actually, I'm just gonna copy paste this thing from the previous. I'll just copy paste that because that's the nice thing about functions, right? Functions are reusable. And then well, somewhat reusable. I'm gonna tweak it right now, but it's not gonna be from scratch. And I think I said the forbidden letters would always be upper. Hello. Oh my god, I'm still on the notes. I'm sorry. I've been talking all this time. Oh, big boo-boo. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Let me restart that spiel. Oh my gosh, sorry. So, sana ka dati? Let's undo all this, blah, blah, blah. Did you see that meme? It's like, okay, nakikita niyo ba yung presentation? Hindi pa, sir. Oh, kasi di ko pa pine-present. Anyway, okay, so that whole rambling thing I was talking about earlier, here it is properly with visual aids. I'm just gonna pseudocode. I pseudocoded this thing. It's like, it's not proper Python, not remotely, but like, okay, it's an outline. Okay, that's fine. So I have this outline. I'm gonna pick a thing. I'm gonna pick has forbidden and then flesh it out. I mean. Is forbidden C. return true. I think that's all I wanted. Right, that's good. We're making progress. We actually implemented part of the pseudocode, so okay. What do you want to tackle next? Let's say let's look at this for each word in the text. Right? Maybe that's something we can do next. Okay. Like let's not think about forbidden muna. Let's look at for each word in the text. Yeah, this is just pseudocode. So okay, how can we do this? So what I'd want is let's flesh out this idea more. How about I get list of all the words? Yeah, how about that? Let's do like the words is equal to get list of all the words from the text. And then for each word in words. Right? Okay, so we could do that. And then censor that word. Let's say I want to have like this is my output. This is my output list. And then for word in words, if has forbidden, then I will go output list dot append the length of the word times the asterisk times the length of the word. This is Python syntax. I'm not sure if C++. I don't think C++ can do it. But it's just, have this asterisk this many times. Otherwise, output the original word. And then once I have this list of words, I'll join them together into a string. This is just a Python function that's like, I'm going to take everything in this list and I'm gonna stick them together into one string. And this means don't put anything between the strings, right? Ganun lang siya. Have I lost you guys, or are you guys okay? Can you guys type 1 in the chat if you're sort of following along? And if you're not, just type what you want me to repeat or what you're struggling with. So 1 if you're okay, specific comment if you're not. 1, okay. Okay, nice. So right, this was a difficult implementation problem, but we're kind of going through it step by step and we're making a lot of progress. Now, how do I get this list of words? Okay, I'll just split. Let's split. For now, okay, spoiler, this is wrong, but let's just get something working. And is this okay? What's wrong? Is forbidden C for colon. And then let's say the first line is CFJ QVXE. And then what does that? Pack my box with 5 dozen liquor jars. I think that's the pangram. Okay, so it kind of works, so which is good. Now we need to figure out what the problem is. First problem is that there's nothing in between them. Yeah, it should include spaces, right? So if I just put spaces here, would that work already? CFJ QVXE. Pack my box with 5 dozen liquor jars. All right, we're getting somewhere. Right? This is looking correct. This is good. This is good. Yeah, that's the problem. We also have to include characters like period, because you notice the problem explicitly said, what is this? A line containing some censor every word. Oh, here. Note that spaces and punctuation should never be included in censorship as they are not part of a word. Right? So jars ended with a dot, and that dot got included in the censorship. We didn't want that. And actually, there's another problem, which is like if you look at the second, like let's say, wait. Let's say NOI. Then, what's the problem? So, wait, I did not want this example. A. What's the problema? So one, these punctuation marks are getting included, and two, like these are two separate words. Like that's kind of a bad definition, but that's the one given in the problem. It's same here. So let's fix it. And I think you guys guessed already. The problem is here with split. Right? We're separating it into words by the spaces, but that's not actually what the problem is asking for us to do, right? It's like the problem is asking us not to separate by spaces, but by spaces and punctuation. So what you could do is a more sophisticated split or regex function or whatever, but I think it'll be instructive for us to code this from first principles, and I just want to show you that you didn't need a regex library to solve this. So here, I'm gonna make a comment, which is that if you separate by spaces and try to treat the punctuation as a special case, you will drown in if statements and edge cases, and it won't be fun. So what if we just follow what the problem says and separate by spaces and punctuation? You guys kind of understand the sentiment. Like, instead of trying to force this built-in function to do it, instead of trying to force the use of this built-in function, and then we're gonna kind of work around it with a whole bunch of punctuation if cases and whatever, let's just go back to first principles and try something that's more naturally, like, just directly what the problem wants. And we'll separate we'll separate different words by space and punctuation. There is a more complicated regex expression that you can do, but let's code it with a for loop just to show that it could be done. So I have the words, and then I have the current word. And then what I'm going to do is for C in words, if C is in, and then let's say I want to type the alphabet. There's a thing with strings. I keep forgetting what strings is, so I just end up doing this the dumb way and go alphabet equals A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And then alphabet plus equals alphabet dot lower. Don't do this. Don't do this. Strings has like ASCII lowercase or something. But you know, like fine. I want to keep library use to a minimum so that different languages can understand it. So basta we just have the whole alphabet here. you know, your language will have a string library with a way to do this that's less dumb, but I want this to be a language agnostic stream, so whatever, we'll do the alphabet this way, fine. And then if C in alphabet, then we'll go current word dot append C. Else, so you can imagine we're kind of like building this word one letter at a time. Actually, maybe this would be the appropriate time to bring out the whiteboard. So let's say we have this hello world. So we have this like current word, and then we'll read it one at a time. So you go H, that's a letter, so we're still in a word. So H, and then this is E, next. This is L, next. This is another L. This is another O, so we're still building the word. And then we encounter this comma. And because we've encountered this comma, we're like, oh, I don't like that. That's so. This comma is not a letter, which means this hello is done. That's a word. So we can kind of output it to our list of words. So our list of words, it now contains hello. And then we're going to erase this. Right? And then what's next? A space, not a letter. Okay, whatever. So what's next? A W. So W is next. We go W, O, R, L, D, and then exclamation point. Oh, exclamation point. That's not a letter. That means this word is done. The word is world. So we'll also flush that and push it into our list of words. Alright, that's the idea that I'm going to implement. I'm gonna start typing it. I'm gonna start typing it now. You can just observe me. But if anyone has any questions with this idea, just raise so in the chat, please. So okay, no. So that's what I want to do. So then this is still the current word. All else, this word is done. So I go words dot append dot join, and then we flush it. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem, right? If I do this, and then I'll just copy this from. So how, let's see, I type NOI, paste this. Why is it not outputting anything? Is it debugging time? Oh my, this was actually, that was okay. That wasn't scripted. This was intention. This is a mistake. Yeah, this should be for syntax. Yeah, that was okay. There you go. So we're almost there. The problem is we have to, like you said, we have to do something about the characters. And one idea I have is let's print the word. Let's print words here. Okay. NOI. So we just have this list of words, and we don't want to destroy the characters, right? Yeah, all of the characters became spaces. That's not what we wanted. Why don't we just also throw the characters into the list of words? There are many ways you could do it. This is like one of them. Right? If the problem we identified was that we were throwing away the punctuation marks. So like, okay, let's not throw them away. So now we can see what space, counts space, as space. Yeah, it's not like we're gonna censor them, right? It doesn't matter for them to be contiguous. And then I won't put a space between each of them anymore. I'll just connect them all together because I kept all the punctuation in spaces. And there you go. That works. Finally, a working code for censorship. No, but right, that wasn't so painful, was it? It looks like scary implementation problem. But if we just broke it down, we started with this high-level outline, and then we'll slowly fill in stuff. And then we can even fill in stuff in our outline with imperfect ideas. That's okay. Just fill it in with an imperfect idea, and then see how it's imperfect, and then we'll tweak it and fix it. And then we'll just keep fixing and refining and refining. Yeah, but it does look easy. But there's an objective sense in which it's not easy because we can see a lot of people struggled with it. So, yeah, I just want to very early on disabuse you. I want to disabuse you guys of this notion that implementation is easy, right? Because like if for a problem to be hard, it has to be math. It has to have some advanced data structure, some obscure algorithm, some magic insight. Oh, if it's just implementation, it already tells you what to do. Then it's easy. No, it's not, right? Because software developers and software engineers, their job is like 90% implementation, and yet we still consider it worth paying them a lot to do. That should already tell you that just implementing things is actually quite difficult because there are many different ways we can reach the same solution. And we want the one that's clean, that's readable, that's like motivated, that we can actually build up on our own. Yeah. So I hope that this problem doesn't seem magic difficult because of the way I presented it. I hopefully showed it like step by step and like, yeah, this is how it goes. Are you guys satisfied with this already? You guys think this is correct? Well, actually, there's a bug. There's still one more bug in this program. And, you know, let's just do a couple more tests. Let's say we have magic words. Oops, wait. That was the wrong one. Let's say I want to ban the letter A, and then I have the sentence magic words. Huh? Where did words go? Do you see what... Can you guys see what happened here? Nawala yung words. Okay, let's try to debug, right? Okay, so nawala yung words. We saw that nawala siya actually even in this list of words step. So because we know this, we can isolate the part of the code where the bug probably is. Okay, so dito pa lang, it's already wrong. So, yeah, something here is wrong. Yeah, the final word wasn't appended, right? We only append here when, like, we encounter a punctuation mark to end and say, oh, this word is over. But if the sentence ends with this last word, with no punctuation mark at the end, then, oops, we forgot to append it. So, let's just put if len current word is greater than 0. I'll just copy paste this. Now it's okay. Okay, good. Now I'm happy with this code. And let me zoom out a bit so you can see it in its entirety. And I'll erase this message. So, are you guys satisfied with this explanation for K? Not scary anymore, right? It turns out implementation is actually pretty scary. But actually, it turns out it's not that scary if you code cleanly like this. So can you guys type a 1 in the chat if you're satisfied with this? All right, nice. And I'm still solving borrowed words. Now we're solving censorship. Sorry, I'm not used to streaming. Anyway, okay. We started solving censorship, now we're done with it. Okay, let's move on to the last problem, which is dual languages. Now, dual languages is it's a combinatorics problem. Combinatorics, it's a counting problem specifically, right? Because it's asking us to count the number of ways to do a thing. Which here is like, count the number of ways that we can pick the 3 hashtags. Quickly in the chat, can you guys tell me what your experiences with combinatorics is like in school? Did you do combi? Like yung times, how many 3-digit numbers are even and don't have a 4, yung mga ganyan. Heart, okay. We have a heart, that's good. What else? How else do people feel about combi? Only discussed shortly, only read it from a textbook. Yeah. You'll encounter... Is combi already covered in school? From what I know, I think grade... Well, okay. I help with the tutoring of my younger brother. They teach combi problems in grade 10. Like really... Like mga basic lang. Yeah, all we had was permutations. Okay, so... The way that they teach combinatorics in school is kind of recipe formula based, right? It's like they'll teach combi and it's kind of just follow the recipe, follow the formula. Ito yung permutations, ito yung combinations. Does order matter? Does order not matter? And then you pick the right function. Tapos yan yung gagamitin mo. And because of that, when you encounter a counting problem like dual languages, it can feel like, oh well, there has to be like a magic formula, a magic recipe, and I kind of don't know what to do here. So, okay, I guess I don't know how to do it. Yeah, sadly not conceptual. So, here's the thing about combinatorics. Actually, even you say permutations and combinations, it's all rooted in these two fundamental things called, well, they're called many things, but I hear them called the rule of sum and the rule of product. Fancy names, but it's actually, I think, straightforward. What are the rule of sum and rule of product? So, rule of sum is that if you have, if you could pick like A choices or B choices and they're independent, then we have like, this gives us like, my gosh, my tab, I'll fix my tablet for the next stream. Then we have A plus B choices in total. Oh, right. Sure, I'm... Okay, there. So, this is the rule of sum, right? Fancy name. But if I write it like this, it's like, oh yeah. If I have 3 red shirts and 5 green shirts, and I need to pick a shirt to wear, how many choices do I have? 3 plus 5 equals 8. That makes sense, right? It's if I have to pick one of these 2 choices, then I just add them. And then if I want, let's say, rule of product naman, this says that if I have A choices and B choices, so A choices for this first thing and B choices for the second thing, and I'll take together, then this means I have A times B choices in total. And maybe this isn't as straightforward to see, but the way I like to imagine this being motivated is you can just like draw a grid. So okay, let's say I have 3 different shirts and 2 different pants. And if I want an outfit, I need 1 shirt and 1 pants. So how many combos of shirt and pants do I have? Well, okay, I can draw, let's say, 3 shirts. And let's say this shirt says A, and this says B, and this says K. And then I have these 2 pants. 1. And then 2. So the answer is 6, right? Because it's 2 times 3 different outfit choices in total. But why is it times? It's because I can kind of arrange it into this grid, right? Right, and each cell in this grid represents like, different like pair of stuff that I'll take together. So this is the A1, this is the A2, this is the B1, this is the B2, this is the K1, and this is the K2. So if I want to say how many different pairs of things can I get where A and B are independent of each other, then we end up with this grid-like construction, kaya times siya. So if I take one or the other, plus, if I want to take them together, times. These are like the 2 fundamental rules of counting. Can you guys type a 1 in the chat if you're okay with this? You guys still digesting? 1. Okay, nice. How about the others? You guys okay? 1. Okay. So if you think about it, this idea of if I pick one or the other, it's plus. If I have to take them together, it's times. this is actually it. I would hazard to say that until you reach super black magic math, most of combi is just going to be some combination of applying these two creatively. Right? Even the cookie cutter formulas that you're taught in school, they're all derived from these two rules. Right? Ano yung permutations? We have ano yung n factorial whatever. Diba, you guys were taught this n factorial thing in school, where n factorial is n times n minus 1 times n minus 2. Let's say hanggang 1. Why is it that the number of ways to arrange n people in a row is n factorial? Well, you can draw like, let's do 4. No, let's do 5 in concretely. So let's say I have 5 guys here, and then I want to figure out like how many ways to arrange them. Well, I have 5 choices to put in this first blank, right? Kasi it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's one of these. It can be any of these guys. So 5 choices for someone to put here. Times, I have 5 choices for who to put here. Except not, because if I'm arranging these people in a line, then di ko pwedeng ulitin the guy who came here. So this is 5 times 5 minus 1. Okay, who goes third in the line? I have 5 students na pwedeng choices. 5 students ba? No, it can't. It's 5 minus the 2 na ginamit ko na dito. No repeats. So it's 5 times 5 minus 1 times 5 minus 2 times 5 minus 3 times 5 minus 4. And this is equal to 5 factorial. Right? So this, how many ways are there to arrange 5 students in a line? You say that, oh, it's n factorial by definition. But why? And when you look at why, actually, it just goes back again to rule of sum and rule of product. That's all it is. That's all we're doing. So are you guys kind of comfortable with that? So let me go back to the window, and I'll just type it out so that it's not just my words out loud. You guys can see it. Combinatorics, counting problems really just boil down to rule of sum and rule of product applied in increasingly creative ways. The derivations for recipes taught in, let's say, in high school combinatorics classes, like factorial for permutations, can be derived simply as an application of rule of sum and product. So, okay, if we're good with that, let's start looking at dual problems. Actually, even if you were okay with this, dual problems is already a bit more non-trivial. Keyboard reveal. I won this in a raffle, so I didn't pick it over for its merits. So ano nating choices here? Okay, the first hashtag contains an ABaKoDa letter. The second hashtag contains a hiram na titik. And the third hashtag contains an ABaKoDa letter and a hiram na titik. So actually, let's start coding, you know, like in contest problems, sometimes I just like to go, well, I'll fill in the details later. And sometimes that bites me, but you know, it's like, it's somewhere to start. If I feel completely lost, then let's just start somewhere. So because we want to have this thing, we want to do a counting problem involving which hashtags have ABaKoDa letters, which hashtags have Hiram na titik, which have both, then I think it's natural for us to just start. If I want a foothold anywhere, let's just start by counting the number of guys that are in each. Right? Like there's two phases to this. There's like the programming part, and then there's the combi part. And let's get the programming part out of the way first. So say n equals int input, and then I'll have 3. I'll call this ABaKoDa, I'll call this Hiram, and I'll call this ABaKoDa and Hiram. Then for underscore in range n, I'll read this word as input, and then I will copy paste this. Oh, see, don't you love? This is the theme of the contest. You're gonna get so much mileage out of these functions and copy pasting. Let's put this here. If let's say let's call this has ABaKoDa equals has forbidden. Why did I call this W? Let's call this S for consistency. And then what is ABaKoDa ABKD? And then has. Oh wait. Yeah, has Hiram equals. And I can do that. Has forbidden S. And then on yung Hiram ulit C F J Q V X C. Yeah. And then if has ABaKoDa and has Hiram, ABaKoDa and Hiram plus equals 1. And elif has ABaKoDa. Actually, I want to rename this to ABaKoDa only. That to be clearer. Elif has Hiram only plus equals 1. Print ABaKoDa only, Hiram only, ABaKoDa and Hiram. And let's say what were the ones in the sample? I had ABKD, E G H, something like that. Something like this. DEGH, I think that's what I put. Yeah. And then I had like Phil, and then Rizal. Then 2, 1, 1. Wait, did I add dot upper? And then nandito na siya. It's in the functions that it's in the functions I copy pasted. That's good, don't worry. It's good to be observant of things like that. But see, isn't it nice? I'm gonna ask you guys right now, are you good with this? Do you understand what's going on? And you don't need to know how has forbidden works. You just trust na, oh, this is what it's doing. And you can just have that trust, and then it makes it easier to read this instead of having to go and examine anong ginagawa ng loop na to. Okay, basta. So, we're counting the ABaKoDa only, the Hiram only, and the ABaKoDa and Hiram, because like it kind of involves choices of these guys, right? So it feels like these are quantities that we want to be counting. So this is what we have so far. I think the code is pretty explanatory because of good variable names and because of use of functions. Okay, so the question is now, what do we do with this? And right, the problem that's what kind of makes this difficult is that they're not always going to behave the same depending on our choices. Wait, that was a very vague way of saying it, but it's like, in the original example I gave about the shirts and the pants, it's like the two are independent always, right? It's like I always have 3 shirts and I always have 2 pants. No matter what shirt I pick, it doesn't affect the pants whatsoever. So it's like, yeah, okay. So, yeah. But then we have the thing with the factorial where we have n choices for the first one, and then we have only n minus 1 choices in the second one because like na-affect siya. It's not the choice in the first case affected the choice in the second case. But here that's like not always the case. I'm gonna give an example. Let's say we have here 4, and then let's say it's ABaKoDa. Let's say it's CFJQVXC, and then I'll put AC, and then another BF. So it's 1, 1, 2. We now have 2 guys that have both an ABaKoDa letter and a hiram na titik. And I wanted to make this very clear. It's okay for the first hashtag to contain a hiram na titik so long as it has an ABaKoDa letter. Right? So now it's kind of messy because if I picked ABaKoDa for the first hashtag, then actually it doesn't affect the choices of the others. Right? Because ABaKoDa doesn't have a hiram na titik. So I can't use it in the other hashtags anyway. So in this case, it's not affecting the others. But if I put AC in the first hashtag, now in this case, it affects the others. Because kanina I could do ABaKoDa and I could just safely go, AC and then BF, right? I didn't have to think about the ABaKoDa portion kasi it's not, I can't put it in second or third naman. But if I put AC first, I kind of have to remember that I put AC first because then I can't put AC second. I can't put AC third again either kasi gamit na siya. So yeah, that's kind of the struggle here. I hope you guys can understand what's making this a bit confusing. Right? Like, it is a confusing problem. But then to start to unravel it, we have to try to put a finger on what exactly about this is so confusing. What makes it so resistant to just like normally going about my day like I normally would. It's difficult. What makes it difficult? If we can put words to what makes it difficult, then we can start working towards solving it. And we've kind of identified that what makes it difficult is that the general formulas from before can't always apply because sometimes it applies and sometimes it doesn't. And so the solution which I'll propose is let's just split this into cases. Right? Because the problem is, I'll type it here. The problem is that sometimes the first hashtag affects the other choices if it has hiram na titik. Other times it doesn't if it does not. And we have a general formula. We have a general idea of what to do in either case, but not when they're mixed and matched like this. Right? I'm trying to put the words to what's making this confusing. And once I have this, I may have this idea. Well, if I had one case or the other, then I would know what to do, right? If the first one had a hiram na titik, then I'd know what to do. If it didn't have a hiram na titik, then I'd also know what to do. What if I just split them into 2 cases? Split into 2 separate cases. If first hashtag has hiram and if it doesn't. And actually, if you work on this, if you work this out on paper a bit more, you'll realize we have to split it into 2 more cases. Into 2 more cases, which are if second hashtag has ABaKoDa and if it doesn't. So actually, we kind of have 4 cases here. I'm gonna show a hack to do multi-line comments in Python. If I do 3 single quotation marks, I have a multi-line string. And if that string doesn't get stored into a variable, then Python just reads it and discards it. So I can actually use this to start commenting. So what are my 4 cases? What are my 4 cases? So I'm gonna have the 3 hashtags here. And my 3 cases are ABaKoDa only, Hiram only, and then both. Or it could be ABaKoDa only, and then both, and then both. Or I could have both. Tapos the second is Hiram only, and then a third always has to be both. And then the last one is both, both, both. So these are my 4 cases. Is this idea clear? How we got here logically? Can you guys type a 1 in the chat if you're following along so far? If you need like more explanation, if you need me to repeat something, please just say so. Alright, so let's do that. Let's go through all the cases. Answer equals 0. We'll do the first case. Ans plus equals ABaKoDa only. So I'm gonna go ABaKoDa only times Hiram only times ABaKoDa and Hiram. Second case, ans plus equals ABaKoDa only times ABaKoDa and Hiram, because we say the second hashtag has both. And then the third one is ABaKoDa and Hiram minus 1. Why minus 1? Because we know na gamit na siya dito. And so we can't repeat whatever we picked in the second hashtag for the third hashtag. And we know that it's only 1, and we know it like walang interference with the first one. Because in this case, we're only considering the ones with this like configuration of stuff. Can't think of a better word. Third case, ABaKoDa and Hiram times Hiram only times ABaKoDa and Hiram minus 1, because I can't repeat the first hashtag. And then last, ans plus equals ABaKoDa and Hiram times ABaKoDa and Hiram minus 1, because I can't repeat the first hashtag, times ABaKoDa and Hiram minus 2, I can't repeat the first 2 hashtags. And then just print out ans. I'll just go over and submit each of these while you guys digest. Oops. For was it Phil? 2. Tama. What's the other one? 3. AC. 6. Just same. So we identified the problem, we found what made it difficult, and then now that we knew what was difficult, we could just start splitting it into these different cases. And once we've split it into those different cases, we can just start applying the standard stuff that we might have known how to do. And see, there's no advanced combi tricks here. Walang permutation in a circle, choosing order matters, order does not matter, order does not matter with repetition. Walang ganyan. It's not. Don't think of it in terms of recipes and formulas. Just keep going back to rule of sum and rule of product. And I think those two will already justify all of these computations here. All of the combis contained in these 4 lines. And they're completely justified with just the plus and times rules of combi. And note, this is like, there was all this other stuff by here about like counting. But it's kind of like a 2-step problem, right? And the nice thing about 2 steps is that we can separate them into each relevant part. Right? When I was explaining this whole combi, we basically just forgot about this first step now because it was already done. But yeah. Are you guys satisfied with this? Is everything okay? This isn't a trick like K. I think this is already correct. So, are you okay with this problem? And do you feel more confident about like combi in general? Can you guys type a 2 in the chat? Don't feel pressured to type 2, huh? If something's really not clear, then you can either take some time to digest it, think it over, or ask questions so I can help explain. You can also PM me on Discord, or if not PM, then you can like message in yung ask help math or whatever. Okay, like slightly off topic na from ABaKoDa. This is gonna be one of my big rants about education. You don't want to hear all of it. But yeah, the part that's relevant to this problem is if you know these 2 first principles and you know them really well, then there's already so much you can do about it. Don't limit yourself to these cookie cutter formulas. You can actually derive a surprising amount of stuff with just thinking about the very basic concepts. And that's true with combi, but it's also very true about programming in general, right? There are advanced algorithms and data structures and concepts, and we will talk about them. And they're very useful to know those standard algorithms. But even with just the basic if statements, loops, lists, ang dami namang pwedeng gawin. If you just think about like how to use them. Okay, wait. You have to understand the objects themselves and how they work. It's not just like a list of rules in your head na, oh, in this case, I should use a for loop. Or in this case, I need to make a list with this syntax, whatever. It's not a list of rules. It's understanding the objects and how they act and how they behave and how they relate to each other. And when you're able to manipulate them with that kind of understanding, that's what I consider fluency in programming. Yeah, don't memorize, exactly. Can you clarify what you mean by you just type those things as examples? Like which example? The ans plus equals stuff. Well, yeah, you could put them all in one big statement if you want. Like if I wanted to do this, then sure, go lang. Yeah, if I wanted to do this, blah blah blah, I could. But I think it's more readable to do it this way, and it kind of highlights the fact that these are separate cases. And it gets naman why we're adding the separate cases, right? The separate cases is kind of the... Actually, maybe I should have made this more explicit earlier. But the reason why we're adding the cases earlier is it goes back to the rule of sum. Diba? It's one of the cases. It's any of them. It's one of them at a time. Yeah, okay, sorry. Thank you for bringing it up. I should have made that explicit. So I'll make a note here. Find the count for each individual case. then add up the counts all together. And add up the counts together to get the answer. And then it's because rule of sum, it has to be one of the cases. Yeah. I think it makes sense when you hear it, but you also kind of need to hear it said explicitly for it to be like, for it to click. Ano. These are different cases. It has to be one of the cases. So it's like, it's like I'm gonna pick a shirt to wear this morning. It's like I'm gonna pick a case to consider, and then I'll add up all those different cases. And then within each case, we'll do rule of product to do the ano yung pwede sa first, ano yung pwede sa second, and so on and so on. Yeah. So, okay, good. Thank you for bringing it up. That's a good point. Are there any other questions or clarifications? Anything unsure pa about this? So, yeah, are we good? Type 1 if you're okay to end the stream here. Yeah, don't worry about this. Masasanay din kayo. And if it hasn't fully clicked yet, that's okay actually. Just try to let it sink in. You know, we've been discussing for 2 hours after your 100-minute contest, so if it hasn't clicked yet, that's fine. Just go take a break and eat food, play a game, and then it'll just digest in the background of your mind. And then I bet maybe today or tomorrow or in the coming days, it's just going to click. And when it clicks, because it works in the background of your mind, you'll be like, okay. And if it doesn't, then you can just always ask any of us for help with another explanation. And I feel like one of the more important things about teaching is being able to explain the same thing in different ways, because different things will click for different people. So if something doesn't click for you, it's completely valid for you to like ask me either publicly or in the channel to explain it. Try explaining it in a different way. AC. I should have made 4. So for each of the 4 problems, we got AC on. So, yun. I guess it's gonna be the theme in all of these discussion streams, but I really wanted to make explicit the whole process of breaking down a problem. And you know, people will always say breaking down a problem. That's become such a buzzword in problem solving classes, whatever. But I hope seeing some concrete examples of actually how we break down a problem or how we approach things bit by bit. Right? You don't have to solve the whole problem at once. Only geniuses do that. It's very like the realistic way that we approach problems is that we just kind of claw at it. We just want to get a foothold, just any understanding, and then once we have that, we can start digging away at it. We can start refining and refining and refining. And it's like a for loop, right? Iterations. I think learning programming, it's iterative. You just start with something and then you just keep refining and improving it until you like how it is. Okay, so one final call for live stream questions. Yeah, when I was in high school and even in early college, sabi ko I was BS Math. So I was a very mathy guy, and I just joined Progvar, which is the basta competitive programming organization in Ateneo. And I hated implementation problems. I was like, oh, I just want to find the ideas. I want the beautiful ideas. And implementation's awful. I hate implementation. But you code enough, you make enough actual projects besides comp prog, then you start to appreciate clean code more and proper coding practices. And when you appreciate proper coding practices more, then you start to appreciate implementation problems more. The funniest implementation problems are the ones where, like, if you think about like the nice way to do it, and then it's like, oh, 20 lines lang yung problem setter solution, and that's like 20 lines of very very clean, well documented, readable code pa. And then if you look at some of the contestant solutions, some of the contestants say, implementation barf, I hate this, and then they have like some 300 line mess. Yeah, sometimes it's worth it to just spend a little extra time thinking of a better way to do it. They call that technical debt. You can code messily now, but you will be paying for it later. And sometimes you can afford the technical debt. Sometimes you can't. And I think from the problems, like if you read a problem like K, you know that you can't afford to do messy coding for that one. When is registration for the next round available? Just so that I won't miss it. So we do have these rounds weekly, and technically the registration is just going to our Code Forces group and then joining the contest. So it'll appear the morning of next Saturday, but like it'll be around this same time next Saturday anyway, and there's no like cut off, so don't worry about it too much. Just go to the same place, you'll see it. You won't get cut off, is what I'm saying. It'll be fine. All right, so I am going to end the stream here without me making more TED Talks. Is ending the stream, final na talaga. Are we good? Okay? You can register even when it started. I think so. Yeah. You won't get the full 2 hour. You won't get the full 100 minutes if you join late. But nothing's stopping you from joining in the middle of it pa. Or you can register like 10 minutes before. It'll all be the same. Just show up basically, right? We wanted to remove all of these different barriers and bureaucratic paperwork, whatever. Just show up to the same place and you'll be able to take the contest and learn. Okay, ending the stream, final na talaga, in parenthesis, promise. Oh yeah, if you missed out on a contest, yeah, you can just do virtual participation. Alright, I will end the stream here. I'm just going to say that now so that we actually do end. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I hope that you found the contest fun. If you didn't find the contest fun, I hope you found this discussion stream enlightening for how to approach problems like this. I hope you guys learned a lot. And yeah, hope you join us again next week. Thank you so much.